This is a Fox News alert. I'm Brett Baer in Washington. A Somali-born teenager used a car and a knife to bring a morning of terror to one of the nation's largest universities. But are authorities saying today's attack at Ohio State University was terrorism, foreign-directed, or ISIS-inspired? Just moments ago, the ranking member of the House Intelligence Committee said of the attack, Democrat Adam Schiff, quote, "It bears all of the hallmarks of a terror attack carried out by someone who may have been self-radicalized." What was initially reported as an active shooter turned out to be a young man who plowed into a group of pedestrians and then got out of his car and began stabbing people. Fortunately, an officer who was nearby on another call shot and killed that attacker before he could continue his knife rampage. 9 people were hurt, 1 critically. Senior correspondent Mike Tobin is in Columbus, Ohio tonight with the very latest. Good evening, Mike.
Good evening, Brett. We now know who Abdul Ali Razak Artan, an 18-year-old Somali immigrant. The motivation, however, remains a mystery. Police say that most of the attack has been captured on security video, and we'll see that over time. The attacker's car jumped a curb, slammed into pedestrians, lost control, wrecked, and got stuck. According to the student newspaper, people crowded around the car, even asked Artan if he was okay. Suddenly, he lunged from the car and began hacking at people with a knife. Now, an alarm for a chemical leak had gone off just before the attack. That is why 28-year-old officer Alan Naharujko was on scene so rapidly. He shot and killed Artan.
We have learned of a Facebook post just moments before this all happened. ABC's chief investigative correspondent Brian Ross with the new clues at this hour into what might have motivated the suspect to do this.
Just 3 minutes before the first 911 call today, Abdul Razak Ali Artan posted this message on Facebook, according to law enforcement officials. "I can't take it anymore. America, stop interfering with other countries, especially the Muslim Ummah. We are not weak. We are not weak. Remember that."
Certainly that authorities need to treat this as a potential terrorist attack.
As police and the FBI tonight carry out a search warrant at Artan's home in Columbus.
Talk to anybody that he might have associated with, find out what they knew.
The picture emerging of him is that of a Somali immigrant,
Abdul Razak Artan, cum laude,
who in this school video taken just 5 months ago seemed to be living the American dream until he turned on his adopted country, becoming radicalized based on what he read and heard online. Artan was recently profiled in the campus newspaper, The Lantern, blaming the media for making Muslims feel scared on campus.
So many people who are flipped by ISIS propaganda remotely look like they're leading successful lives. It's so hard to predict when the propaganda will get through to them to the point where they crack and go violent.
In recent weeks, ISIS has been urging its followers to copy the vehicle attack that took place in Nice, France, when 84 people were killed by a terrorist driving a semi-truck through the Bastille Day celebration there. And just 2 days ago, ISIS posted this new video instructing its followers how to use a knife to attack non-believers.
Our concerns that the suspect is a Somali refugee, that might be warranted, as there's been 10 major terrorism cases brought against legal refugees and legal immigrants just this year in the United States. My next guest says the Ohio State attack has all the hallmarks of terrorism. Founder and president of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy, Dr. Judy Gasser, joins me now. So let me ask you this. Authorities don't want to say terrorism. They're just saying we're investigating. What tells you this is homegrown terror?
Well, I mean, everything points to that, and my hearts and prayers are with the Ohio State University and all the families, and thank God this person was eliminated. And the bottom line is this has all the hallmarks of the Nice attack. You remember the ISIS journals and online radicalization manuals had said use a vehicle to commit slaughter in large public places. The softer the target, the better. Then we saw in the San Bernardino shootings and in Orlando, softer and softer targets. Then there was the magazine Rumiyya, which came out in October and was talked about online, that it basically said use knives, use any public setting with schools, kids with backpacks, whatever it may be, so that you can commit the slaughter and bring attention to the fact against the West, against the enemies of Islam. And as we saw, one of the things we're seeing with this gentleman is that the precursors of violent radicalization are nonviolent radicalization, fears of the West media, of using terms like Islamophobia and other aspects that make Muslims separate out of society and head them on that path towards radicalization.
Well, does part of your theory on this, and we should say, of course, it's early going, this just happened this morning, but that the fact that he did spend time in Pakistan, that he was quoted, as our correspondent just mentioned, saying that he was scared to pray on the campus in Ohio. Does that kind of lead you to believe that there's more here than what authorities are telling us?
Well, again, like you said, a lot of this right now is we're trying to put the pieces together, but it doesn't help anyone for us to be in any denial. And it's apparent, as we see with the Boston bombers, as we see with many of these folks in Orlando. They had traveled to Saudi Arabia, to Pakistan. This family had gone from Somalia to Pakistan, then to Ohio, and where he went to school since 2014. So the radicalization process started with likely with an anti-Americanism before even coming here, and this is why this discussion is so important. We need to be vetting them not only if they were part of terror groups, but are they anti-American? What do they view this society? Is it something they're embracing, or is it something they're afraid of and feel like it's not part of their identity? Which I think a lot of the things, as we learn about Mr. Artan more and more, will become likely apparent that he really did not feel that this was his home.
And he didn't feel welcome here and therefore potentially attacked. Just a couple of months ago, let me ask you this. ISIS had called for random knife attacks in alleys, forests, beaches, quiet neighborhoods. They've always talked about soft targets here in Europe. Could this be a part of that strategy from ISIS?
Exactly, and the reason they use that strategy, and by the way, when we talk about them, telling them that they're more afraid, well, that doesn't make the onus on Americans. It's their onus because they are trying to radicalize Muslims, and they tell them to do these very soft targets because they're realizing the Homeland Security is squeezing them more and more, and they have to use victims of opportunity, which are in public spaces. So they want to unravel our society from within, and the way to do that is at healthcare facilities like at San Bernardino, or the National Guard recruiting places like in Chattanooga, or the bar like in Orlando. These are no longer the hard targets which are no longer accessible to them. They simply want to get on the front page and commit heinous acts of terror, and that's what this is. And we need to start looking at earlier precursors before they pick up the knives and launch into an attack like this man did
looking
today.
at their social media chatter and I hate to say profiling, but that may be down the line possibly. Well, Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, thank you very much, sir. We appreciate your time tonight.
Anytime. Thanks for having me.